In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, to whom we all have to turn back. Honourable listeners and respectable audience, you know that we have started a series of linguistics. In linguistics, we have started the chapter that is known as phonology. Phonology, I told you that it is the study of the organization of sounds, that how sounds they are organized in structure. Yesterday our topic was about segmental phonology and suprasegmental phonology. Listeners and audience, today I'm going to talk about the types of suprasegmental phonology, and that is intonation. The first type is intonation. As I told you yesterday that we have some attributes of voice that are intonation, tone, juncture, stress, etc. We are talking one of them today, that is intonation and its types. Intonation is the rise and fall of a voice in speaking. That is known as intonation. The rise and fall of the voice in the speaking, this process is known as intonation. And whenever we are talking about the types of intonation, so there are three types of intonation. The first type is known as rising intonation. Rising intonation means it is the type of intonation when our voice remains rise, so it is rise intonation. And falling intonation is the type of intonation when our voice remains fall in speaking. And falling and rising intonation is the type of intonation where our tone or our speaking, our voice remains rise and fall in both conditions. This process is known as both rise and falling intonation. Listeners and audience, this topic will not be clear until and unless I share with you some practical examples. You know, there is a question in our mind, and that is that what is the importance of intonation? In other words, why intonation is important? There are two main reasons or two main perspectives where intonation is important. The first reason is to avoid monotone. To avoid monotone. To avoid monotone means that whenever you are speaking with one tone, there will be a position which will make you bore those people, those listeners who are listening to you. So intonation is used to avoid monotone. Monotone means when your tone is not changed. Unchangeable tone, that is known as monotone. The next importance of intonation is to change meaning. To change meaning. For example, whenever I am just sharing with you two sentences, let me write it. For example, one is reading, or you are reading. You are reading. Okay? Just take this sentence and another. You are reading. Just me, not for just question marks. You see, these two sentences, they are the same. You are reading and you are reading. But in speaking, if I say you are reading, so there is no intonation. Falling intonation is there. But if I say are you reading or you are reading, just not, I have not written question mark, but I say you are reading. So this shows a kind of intonation. So listeners and audience, that's why intonation is important, that it changes the meaning even of a word in a complete sentence. In the first sentence, which is just a general sentence, it gives us a statement that you are just reading, you are reading. But I say you are reading, it shows a question, though there is no question marks. So it depends upon the speaker that how he is uttering a sentence. Now, I'm going to share with you the types of intonation. The first one is rising intonation. As I told you that rising intonation is a type of intonation where our voice remain rise. For example, I'm writing some sentence, WH questions, take question, take questions, WH questions, and similarly command, also known as imperative sentence, and we also have general sentence, and after that we also have choice or option and complex sentence. Okay, listeners and audience, these are some rules which I have written on the board, and these will be very easy for you to inculcate and keep in your mind. First of all, whenever we are talking about WH question, in WH question, mostly only falling intonation are there. Remember that. There are some symbols which are used for rising and falling intonation. First of all, so in WH question, there is only what type of intonation? Falling intonation. For example, who are you? Who are you? Okay. Listeners and audience, you see the two slashes here and here the two slashes. These two slashes, they actually represent rising and falling intonation. It is just for the representation. So here this symbol, which at the ending there is arrow. So this represents that there is falling intonation. In this complete sentence, falling intonation is said. Who are you? Who are you? So here it is falling intonation. Okay. But whenever we are talking about take questions, and take questions, there is what? There is rising intonation. For example, it is a story book. Isn't it? Just short. It is a storybook, isn't it? So here it is a rising intonation. So the symbol will be in this way. It is a storybook, isn't it? So here we see rising intonation at the ending of a word. So that's why that symbol is a fair. And whenever we're talking about imperative sentence or command, so in imperative sentence we have two types of sentences. If you're talking about a sentence which gives command, then there will be what type of intonation? There will be just falling intonation. But on the other hand, we have another sentence which is used to make request. So If you are making request, then there will be rising intonation. For example, here I am writing one example. Open the door. Open the door. Open the door. So, yes. What type of intonation? Falling intonation. But if you are making request, then there will be rising intonation. For example, open the door, please. Open the door, please. I'm repeating. Here in the sentence which is making request, then we are using, and there is a rising intonation. Open the door, please. Okay. If you are talking about general sentence, for example, he lives in Peshawar, and we see that the earth revolves around the sun. So then there is falling intonation. Okay. Choice or option. If you're talking about choice or option, there will be rising and falling intonation. But remember, in the first part, there will be rising intonation, and in the next part of the sentence or in the next option, choice, there will be falling intonation. Sorry, in the first option, rising intonation, and the next option, falling intonation. For example, do you like tea or coffee? See, do you like tea or coffee? So here you see a rising intonation, yes, and here is falling intonation. Listeners and audience, whenever we are talking about complex sentence, so in complex sentence there are falling intonation and rising intonation. But remember, at the first portion there will be falling intonation, and the next portion there will be rising intonation. For example, if you work hard, you will pass the test. Okay, so if you work hard, falling intonation, you will pass the test. If you work hard, you will pass the test. So here is rising intonation. So listeners and audience, I think this topic is clear. Today I talk about rising intonation, that what is rising intonation and what is falling intonation. First of all, let me revise it in short word. Intonation is the rising and falling of our voice in speaking. It is intonation, or up and down in our speaking, that is upper voice in the speaking, that is intonation. And then we have three types of intonation. One is rising intonation. Whenever our voice remains rise in speaking, it is rise intonation. Falling intonation, when our voice remains falling or fall in speaking, that is falling intonation. And rising and fall mean whenever our voice remain up and down, rise and fall in speaking, then that is known as rising and falling intonation, and which I shared with you with clear-cut examples. Thank you.